Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Eli, the real estate guy, and I wanted to be a little transparent with you guys and let you guys know about the story of my first true deal, right? Not, non-refundable deposits, none of that. I want you to know about the story of how I got my first deal. All right, so this is I'll give y'all a rundown. So at this point, have a job, paying great, 6 figures, company car, or whatever. So, but I know that wasn't the end of my story. My passion was to always get into real estate, but I just had no idea how to really, fly the way I needed to fly. So, take you back to where I heard about wholesaling a couple years, or about a year and a half before, right? The point of when I got the deal. So I heard about wholesaling. I learned a lot about it. I would watch a ton of videos of Jay Morrison. Shout out to Jay Morrison. That's who I actually learned what wholesaling was, right? So I learned about wholesaling from watching his videos, and I just went into a rabbit hole, just learning. And like I said, I've had attempts at deals, got non-refundable deposits, and so then I went into that latest job to where it was a great pay, but in the back of my mind, it's like, how am I gonna get these deals done? How am I gonna be able to cold call? How am I gonna be able to do what I need to do if I'm flying to this state, staying there for about a month, and I come back home for 4 days, and then I gotta fly back out to another place, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, I get to stay home this time, but this time I'm working 10, 12 hours a day. By the time I'm done with the day, it's 10 o'clock at night, but I'm starting early in the morning to get ready at 8 o'clock. And I'm like, man, how in the world am I gonna get this done? And whenever I found ways to get some type of traction, things just wasn't happening. So, fast forward, I was just thinking to myself, okay, at some point I'm gonna have to invest in my education and really understand how to get this done, right? So I remember I was a part of some course before. It was too expensive. I couldn't afford it, so I left it alone. And also it was a thing of I didn't really believe as much of investing in my education at that point, especially paying like $150 a month to have access to some information. I wasn't down for that at that point in time. So moving forward, what I ended up doing was I found someone on YouTube. So her name is Jennifer West Granhan. Shout out to you. You definitely helped me get my first deal, so definitely appreciative of you. So I was a part of her mentorship program while I was still working. So I would get her lessons, and we would talk about a lot of the concepts that I knew. Right, I knew about bandit signs. I know about cold calling. I knew about pre-foreclosures. I knew about all the things that she was telling me. But what was different about her program is that she did the portion that was first about the tactical things of, hey, use this bandit sign, blah blah. But then there's the other portion that was about mindset. And what I realized was I was carrying a lot of baggage, right, mentally, that made me believe that I couldn't get a deal. Though I wanted to get a deal, I did not believe that I could. I would go online and I'll see all these checks, and I'm like, man, surely there's something that I don't know about, because what do you mean this guy got a $10,000 check? What do you mean this guy got like a $6,000 check? Like, how is that possible, right? And so I'm just looking at that, I'm like, there has to be a way. And so by going through this mentorship, it was just a lot of the mindset of already acknowledging that you have gotten the check and believing that you will get this check, and just being in a moment as if you've already got it. Did those exercises, and also just speaking with my wife, who gave me a lot of great support and was really there for me, her and her family. Gave me a lot of great support, and she was really coaching me through understanding, like, hey, you need to basically get right. You need to make sure that you're doing what you need to do in order to succeed. If you're gonna be cold calling, actually cold call. If you're gonna be doing this, actually do this. And at the time, when I was working on deciding, okay, how am I gonna get this deal? I made a decision. This was kind of soon after my birthday. I'm like, you know what? Since I wanna be serious about wholesaling, and since I wanna be serious about real estate, one has to go. It's either I give up on real estate and just try to stack up with this job, and my knees giving out because I got to climb roofs and all that stuff. Like, I could either stay with this job or I can just quit. And it was kind of that hesitation of like, you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, you know what, think about it, and in the morning, see if you want to do that. And the next morning, I was actually set to travel to Denver from Houston. And I was supposed to drive there, right? It was one of those jobs. So I remember that morning I woke up and I decided, yes, I'm quitting. And she was like, okay, well, if you're gonna quit, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. Make sure you're calling, make sure you're marketing, make sure you're doing everything you need to do to be successful. I'm like, absolutely. And so from there, I remember I put in my 2 weeks, and that's the story in itself. But I am glad that I made the jump, right? So still had access to Jennifer because I was still going through that mentorship program with her. And so I would continue my lessons with her, let her know that I had a lot more free time to do what I need to do. Because before I'm like, oh, well, let me just hire somebody to do the calls. It's okay, you can hire somebody to do calls, but if you never cold call before, what are you gonna tell them to do? Oh, here's a list, let me know when the leads come in. You know what I mean? So I had to do the work first so that I could understand what I need to coach people on, which now I have a VA, but definitely at the beginning, didn't need to get a VA. I needed to go through the mud myself. All right, so as I started to cold call, I remember I had a whole schedule out. My day started super early, like around 4 o'clock. Went to the gym, came back, read, and then from there I would start my day by cold calling in the morning. Then I'll take my breaks, eat, come back, do some texting, and do some additional cold calling. But when I was calling, I was actually using Google Voice. So this is pre-dialer, though it existed. I didn't know about these dialers. I was just going off of, I need to get it going, right? So my days were that, Monday through Friday, every single week. And I was just churning. And I knew that I needed to get, I think at the time it was 20 leads to equal a deal. So in my mind, it was just, okay, as long as I just keep doing this, as long as I keep cold calling, as long as I'm texting, as long as I'm reaching out to agents, like I had a system that I was doing. I'm like, as long as I'm doing this and I stay consistent, and I have a support system with my wife, I have a support system with Jennifer. If I have questions about wholesaling, she's gonna answer it for me. Like, I have a support system. Now I just gotta go. And so I just remember going in and just going. And day after day, getting cussed out on, hung up on, just things just happening. There are days where I felt slightly discouraged because I'm like, did I really just quit my job? Right? Did I really just give up that job that paid as much as it did? I get to fly all over the place. I'm racking up reward points for staying at hotels for, months at a time. Like, did I really just let that go, right? But then time just went on and I just had to keep remembering, like, it's happening. I'm getting close. And I remember one of the things that I did was driving for dollars. And so this one particular day, because I would drive for dollars on Wednesday, crazy storm, right? And Houston floods like nobody's business, man. Like, somebody could take a cup of water, and if you spill it here, there's a flash flood, right? It's crazy. So tons of rain this day, but I'm like, hey, I got to get it in. This is part of what I do. If I stop now, then I got to stop other things. I can't do that. So I'm going in, and I'm driving through this neighborhood, right? And as I'm driving through, this neighborhood is flooded. It's crazy. So certain streets are, I'm assuming, higher than others. So as I'm driving, this street is cool, but then I go down here and it's like, oh, let me slow down. because it's flooded, right? I have an SUV, luckily, right? And so with that, as cars would come through, the wake of the waves coming through, I would have to stop. And as I stopped, I would kind of rock a little bit because the water was high. Like, I'm sure at many points my car lifted up, but I'm like, hey, I got to get this done. And so I remember I was driving down one street and there's a guy that was like, hey, don't come down this way, right? And he was telling me because the road dipped in the middle, so there was like a dip and a hill, right? I couldn't see that because the water is level, right? And the way I was checking to see how deep the water was by looking at the mailboxes, right? And so as the mailboxes, you can kind of see them on the side. If you don't see a mailbox, the water's a little deep there. If you see the mailbox, okay, well, at least I know a range of how high it was. But I was looking at this one particular street, I see no mailboxes. And a guy that was stuck in his driveway just flagging me down like, please don't come this way. I'm like, okay, cool. So I don't go that way, but I continue driving for dollars. Went down another street, taking down houses. I see this one house that has a lockbox on it. I'm like, whatever, I'll write it down. So I wrote it down, skip traced it, ended up cold calling the list. And when I contacted the person, he was interested. But he's like, you know what? Let me go ahead and talk to my wife first. And in my mind, I'm like, I know what that means, whatever. So in my mind, I'm like, I just got to keep going because I'm going to get a deal at some point. So as time went on, the next day he calls me. He's like, hey, I spoke to my wife and she said it sounds good. So when do you want to meet? I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, we could meet, on this day at this time, blah, blah, okay, cool. And then I got off the phone, I'm like, this guy, like, this might happen. Like, whoa, like, this is crazy. And so I go out to the home. I already had everything pre-filled out, right? Now I don't have the price written down, but at the time I had it all written down. I'm like, you know what? There's a little bit more damage than I anticipated, but, let's go for it. And he signed it, and I remember holding the contract, and I'm like, okay, cool, act normal in front of him. But as I drove away, I'm like, I have a house under contract. Like, what just happened, right? And so told my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, she was super excited for me. And so then I'm running the numbers. I'm trying to say, okay, how am I gonna do this? What am I gonna offer it at? And so I had a price in mind. I'm like, you know what? I hear everybody talk about 10,000, so 10,000 is what I'm gonna do. And so I'm advertising this everywhere. My wife, she's really big in excellence. So she's like, hey, you gotta make a custom video. We're gonna take the pictures and make a slideshow and this and make it real pretty. Like, it was crazy. And so I put that up on these different Facebook pages, these Facebook groups that talk about wholesaling and things of that nature. So I got contacted by someone who ended up being part of a disposition company. And so he said he was interested. He wanted to see the property, but I had to sign some paperwork first. I'm like, I don't know about that, but whatever. So I looked it over, and he was like, yeah, we just need a couple day option period and deposit instead of 5,000. I was like, well, it needs to be at least 15. He's like, okay, 15,000. I'm like, all right, well, whatever. Let's just see what happens, right? And so had the showing or inspection, came through with several people, and when it was all said and done, he said he'll let me know that that evening once someone is interested in the property. And he explained their process, and that evening sent a text, and he said, we're good to go. And I remember the price I was giving him initially, I was gonna do it at 10,000, but I remember my wife was like, go up a few thousand, right? Like, just like you can go up a little bit more because it's still within that range. Yes, leave meat on the bone, but you can go up a little bit more. And so that was 13,000. And so I remember going through that process, he signed it, he agreed, and I'm like, am I really about to get a $13,000 check? You know what? I don't know. Let me go through the process. It was a super smooth process, right? About 2 weeks later, it closed. I got my check, and I remember holding the check. And because I went through that cycle with Jennifer's mentorship of I am sitting down, I'm imagining myself in my car, I'm imagining myself with the check. At the time I was saying 10,000, but this time it's 13,000. And I just remember myself just being like, I felt this before. I felt like I've gotten a deal before. I felt like I deserved it, right? And I was very like, people are like, oh my gosh, a $13,000 check, oh my gosh, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, this is weird. And the next thing I was thinking was, I need to get another one of these, right? So, of course, it went on, and about like another month and a half later, got the next check was about 10,000, and things have been great since. Of course, there's been ups and downs, right? So, just being, real with you guys, there's been ups and downs when it came to wholesaling, but once I had a consistent pattern, I just kept it going. Things always end up great. So, just wanted to share that story with you guys, just to explain how sometimes you have to make sacrifices. I'm not recommending anybody quit their jobs. I'm not telling you that, right? I'm just telling you what I did, right? But I say all that to say everybody has a story, right? And as you get your first deal, I would love to hear your story, right? Your story may not be like mine, but everybody remembers that first deal. And I just wanted to share that information with you all, inspire you guys, and know that it's not always going to be easy. Sometimes it is easy, but sometimes it will be a challenge. Sometimes you may have to pay for mentorship. Sometimes you'll have to, for example, I have a book, an ebook, Wholesaling 101 Your First Steps. Actually, if you actually go in the description, you'll see the link to that book, and it shows you how to actually wholesale. So I wish I had something like that as well when I first start wholesaling, because it comes with the contracts, it comes with a ton of items, plus it comes with access to a Facebook group to where you can ask me questions directly. But I am so appreciative of that experience because it's something that I'll hold with me forever, and it's something that I know that has inspired many people before whenever I told the story. So